The suppression of sex, the act of sexuality, is the prime cause of the crippling of the human soul, or the human crippled soul personality. We still have a very big problem with sex in humanity. It's not relaxed. Sex is still a sin. Sex is still a bank robbery. Sex is a big deal. It's kind of like something you have a heart attack on. And sex is very, very powerful, very active in the adolescent. From 11 years old till 19 years old, sex is a fire that drives the soul crazy in humanity. And if we don't have a successful adolescence, we cannot become a successful adult. The adolescent phase of life is that phase by which the transformations take place to become a successful adult. An adult means a man, not a boy, a man, not a girl, a woman. And sex plays a very, very big role in the production of a man or the production of a woman. And we just don't allow for sex. The punishment, the suppression, you can't have sex. There's a contempt from the human heart and the human psychology against sex, power, and money. These are fundamental animal and physical realities that we have not got rid of because we are still physical beings and animal beings. We have not stopped being these beings. We have multiple faculties. I mean, life keeps going pretty happy until you hit puberty. You hit adolescence. And at that time, there is so much confusion. There is so much hell, especially because of the appearance of very powerful sexual sentiments. And that's not to make a baby. These are sentiments to make a man, to make a woman. It's not to make a baby. Biologists are wrong. Sexuality plays a humongous role in the growth of maturity of the soul, in its understanding of life and death. Sex is not nothing. Everything and all the authorities are against this sexuality. They rather have us going to school and passing math exam and algebra exams and trigonometry and history and geography. That's more important than our sexual and romantic development. This was my problem. Personally, I grew up in the 70s, and my sexual life was about stealing a magazine, which I was not allowed to buy because I was not 18 years old, some kind of Playboy calendar, and hiding in a fire escape, masturbating. That was my sexual life when I was 15, 16, 17. In the 1970s, there was no way to have sex. Sex was like an illegal act. It was like a bank robbery. You could be arrested if you had sex. It was that kind of thing. And women, especially women, were the biggest problem because the men were willing, but the women were afraid of being branded a slut or a whore and be unmarriageable, and no man would want to marry a slut. What does that mean? That she has sexual experience. If a woman has sex with 4 or 5 men to have experience, she's all of a sudden damaged goods and she's not able to succeed in our society. These are the values of the Stone Age, and we still are in the Stone Age. And the proof is the nature of sex today. It's still underground. Sexual sites, a hamster here and this kind of hamster.com and this underground. If you look at the main networks like Apple or Amazon or Prime, there's no sexual content. Very rare. It's a capital crime to see a naked body or a penis or a vagina. It's a terrible crime. As long as we have this fear, this contempt for something that is actually very good for you, somebody who has a good sexuality, a powerful sexuality, a grown sexuality of a man, or a grown sexuality of a woman is a superior soul than a soul that does not have a developed sexuality, that has a sexuality of a little crippled bird, which is usually the case. Our society, family, government, schools, religion, tell us that sex is forbidden, that it cannot grow, it cannot develop. We can't have this kind of experience. We need to sign contracts before a notary before we can have our first fuck. This is still the values. When a woman lives with a man without a marriage contract, she feels like a slut. This has to disappear. These are very, very bad values. We don't allow our women to live their lives the way men live their lives. They're kind of cows and possessions to be branded by a single man. Talk about American values, which are the most advanced values on the planet. American values. Well, sex and sexual maturity and sexual growth are not an American value. There's still this family value. This is what they call family value. Family values means that there's not going to be any sex. That's what it means. Instead of saying there's no sex in this show, oh, it's a family values. We only deal with emotions here. We have no sexuality. We have very little sexuality. We will tempt you. We will show a little bit of sex to sell the program, but we can't really show the real nature of life, which is very sexual. The soul is allowed to have different kinds of sexuality. There could be an emotional sexuality, which is driven towards a very strong attachment and marriage, but that's just one kind of sexuality. There's an animal in us which likes pleasure and beauty in sexuality, which sometimes is not included in the emotions. The emotional sexuality cannot cover all sexuality. And of course, the most mysterious sexuality is power sexuality, a sexuality that develops the power, the physical power of the soul. Right? That is totally illegal. It's unheard of. It's not driven towards marriage. This is a sex to develop power. There's a sex to develop pleasure. There's a sex to develop love. There are multiple different kinds of sexuality. Our science of psychology doesn't understand that a crippled sexuality, a bad adolescence, right, will affect the soul for a whole life. If the adolescent does not go on properly, if it's not a successful adolescence, as in my case, I admit it, then the adult years will be very, very difficult. It's very difficult to correct a very bad adolescence. Anything sexual in our society is scandalous. Xbox and PlayStation 4 have no adult games. We can't see sex. We have to go to underground websites to catch a virus in our computer in order to see a man and a woman having sex or having love or having pleasure. And these are essentials of becoming a man and developing, or becoming a woman and developing. It's like saying that eating a banana is evil and we don't want to see that. Sex is akin to that. It's akin to eating food. And suppressing sexuality would be like suppressing food. You can't eat. You'd become an anorexic, crazy. Well, we are sexual anorexics in humanity, and we're proud of it. And our religions are even worse. They want the death of our sexuality. If you enter a spiritual path, as I did, if you enter heavy Christianity or heavy Hinduism or Buddhism, we're talking about you might as well take a knife and cut your penis right off. This virginity and chastity that is promoted by the human heart moral values of old times and the Bibles of old times, this is Stone Age values that don't allow the soul to grow into a man, grow into a woman. We don't give the soul the right to fuck, which it needs in order to grow. We need a different kind of set of rules in this game. We're not winning this game because when we enter adolescence, we don't get out of adolescence. We stay an adolescent for a whole lifetime. We never become a man and we never become a woman.